Welcome to the meeting on May 1st. We will proceed according to the posted agenda. We have our quorum, so we'll start with reading of minutes. First one is the old minutes from February 14th that were sent out. Any questions, corrections? Motion?
Motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Dave Levine, so Chris and Dave. Roll call, Lauren?
Yes.
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 I wasn't present, so I'm going to abstain.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
So all but one voted positive, favorable, and one abstention. Second thing is the minutes from the April 24th meeting.
Motion.
Chris motion,
I'll second it.
Andy second. Any questions, discussions, corrections? Hearing none, roll call. Lauren?
Yes.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Yes.
Yes.
Abstain.
Yep.
Yes.
So all favorable except for two abstentions.
Who's the other one? Bobby and who?
Carly? Okay, so hopefully a short meeting tonight.
Sure.
Dr. Valani, you're on.
Yes.
Valani's like, yeah, please.
Thank you for having us. Obviously, this is the article dealing with the Milford Youth Center. Just a brief background, and then Brian will go into more detail.
Article 13.
Article 13, I believe. As I'm sure you know, we have a water infiltration issue. We've had that issue for some time. We are in litigation. Brian can touch on that a little bit in a second. We have hired a consultant. We now have a damage estimate, and the amount is $1.5 million that we're going to be asking for tonight. We've had a brief mock-up done by the consultant and the people we are using. It appears to be working, so it is successful. It needs to be done. We all know the value of the youth center, the programs they have there. I know it's a steep amount, but unfortunately, that's the amount.
Now, 1.5 million is to fix it.
Yeah, so that's the cost estimate that we have now for design and the renovation work. The work is primarily to the head house of the building. That is the only part of the project that experienced the water infiltration through the initial construction or renovation. Let me just think for a second, going back to 2015. Water had penetrated the building after the initial renovation work. We worked closely with the engineer, WGI at the time, and of course the contractor to try to solve it. There were differing opinions as to what needed to be done at that point. Subsequently, we brought in a second engineer to kind of evaluate it. The consensus at that time was that the contractor, through the subcontractor, didn't perform the mortaring work in accordance with the specs from the engineer. And that was what the committee relied upon to go forward. And in 2018, the contractor, through the subcontractor, Costa Brothers, actually repointed the entire part of the head house at no cost to the town. The value of close to $300,000 to $500,000, which was part of the project at the time. We thought it was solved. There had been testing before that. It didn't. So the project continued. It was finished at that point, but for the water infiltration. At that point, fast forward to 2018, 2019, and there were discussions at that time to initiate litigation against both the contractor and the engineer. For a variety of reasons that I really don't want to get into, it really didn't happen. as quickly as I thought it should have, but I was really not part of the picture at that time. All I was the chair of the committee that was actually not operational. Litigation was filed, fortunately, in a different method than I would have preferred, given my choice, but again, it was done the way it was done. We have a pending action still against the engineer. The contractor, there was a separate action brought against that firm. That's settled. So now we are in active litigation with the engineer. We have, through the litigation, have reached out to another engineering firm, SGH, and, with all the work that I've done, they are probably by far the best engineering firm I've ever been associated with. And they performed a really methodical type analysis, targeted analysis as to, what the water infiltration issue was due to, and came up with a plan. Actually, they presented us, I want to say 2 or 3 options. And essentially, if you think about the head house of the building, you see the course of windows and doors. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. And if you notice closely, the granite is layered in a design pattern. Those granite blocks are irregular. They vary in depth from 4 inches to 9 inches. The mortar spaces are irregular, varying from 1/4 of an inch to over an inch. Therein lied the problem in terms of trying to get the mortar deep enough. And tell me if I'm getting too far in the weeds.
Oh, the 1.5 million go down the weeds.
Yeah, so, the specifications from WGI called for remortaring twice the size of the depth. So if you had a 1-inch mortar space, they were looking to have it at 2 inches depth. The key was, again, in retrospect, obviously we wish we knew that, but we relied upon the 2 engineering at the time. There was no flashing. And that's what SGH came up with as flashing. So the problem, and probably what we ran into in 2015 and 2018, was the flashing. When you do a course of flashing that would run across the run of, say, the windows, say the top floor of windows, you've got to take apart that whole line of granite. So the way it was compared to us was like, think about having a Lego building and taking out the little tabs and then just putting your Legos. It's not going to stay. So that was an engineering issue. It can be overcome with steel lentils and other types of fasteners, which, again, are much more involved and intrusive. So what we arrived at with SGH was a compromise or kind of a reasonable type solution, because the water really is only coming in over the openings, what windows and the doors are. So the design that we've come up with is a limited amount of flashing to go the minimal amount necessary to achieve a lack of water penetration over the tops of the windows and doors. It was tested. So we tested it primarily on the easterly side of the building at 4 different locations. East and southerly side, I should say. They did the work, did the flashing. It had to be done very carefully. They had to actually remove each block, remove the mortar, put in the flashing, fasteners, put the blocks back in for each opening, and it was done. And it works. At long last, it works. There were extensive water tests done. We've had rain. Those openings that have been rectified, we called it the mock-up, those are not experiencing the water penetration. Essentially, the flashing, it allows the water to come in, but then directs it out in a proper fashion. Much like you might recall how we solved the cupola in Town Hall back in 2004, or whenever that was. So that's the process. The case is still under litigation. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to recoup a portion of this money through the litigation. But I think, as all of you know, litigation takes time, litigation could be uncertain, and water is still coming into the building, and it's going to continue to damage the inside. So we would like to have this appropriation to start the process to do the corrective work, which, again, even if we go forward at this time period, considering designer selection, bid process, contractor mobilization, that type of stuff, should set us up to hit the ground or hit the building in the spring.
So now, $1.5 million fixes the problem,
Yes,
to the best of our knowledge.
exactly.
How much do you think, if our lawsuits go forward, when you say we'll recover some, do we have any idea how much we?
So the measure of damages would be what the cost would have been to have this as a change order in 2015. So our cost estimator gave us an estimate on that, and that was roughly $850,000. So if we were going to try to rectify it, if we knew how to rectify it in retrospect, I wish we had a different engineer, but, we had what we had. It would have cost us $850,000 at that point. So that measure,
Lucky we could get half this money back.
our measure of damages would be the difference between the 850 and the 1.5.
Plus
Now,
interest.
One last question. Do we have money set aside, enough money for the litigation?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to ask such a dumb question of a barrister, but
No, there's
No,
no...
it's a good question.
Hey, there's no dumb questions with this. I
remember
mean,
the Benjamin Moore was like every so long.
Still going with that one, yes.
going.
Yeah.
David,
that's another issue. If you want to get into that one, I can
Not
talk
tonight.
about that.
not on the agenda. As the good Dr. Villani would point out, can't talk about it.
Brian, you said you settled with the GC already?
Yes.
Was there any monetary money that comes back that offset
Very
this?
minimal. The general contractor, RAC, is out of business. They didn't handle it with the insurer. Not to get too involved, because it is active litigation. Myself and Jerry it would have been handled differently. Let me just leave it at that.
Jerry?
I don't know how to phrase this question without, this problem was not caused by the original purchase of the facility to begin with. This was created when we did a renovation, correct? Go ahead, I'll let you.
If you recall, I mean, when the town took over the building,
Yes.
for $1.
Correct.
We took it over from the state. And I think a lot of you probably toured the place at that time. I mean, it was almost a tear down, that there had been so much water infiltration throughout the entire building, it was impossible to identify where all of it was coming from. The ceilings were sagging to the extent of about 1.5, 2 feet. And that's how and we had kids in there at that time, people in there. That's how dangerous it was. So, in answer to your question, there was existing water infiltration through the roof. There was existing water infiltration through the windows, through the walls, and groundwater from the basement.
Groundwater coming in from.
Exactly, yeah, so we have 3 culverts running underneath that building right now. If you lift up, you'll see active water doing that. So all of that reduced, that work reduced virtually all of the water infiltration. However, the information that was given to us from the engineering at that time did not handle the water infiltration coming from the head house.
Okay, so
So in answer to your question, if you had to, we probably took care of 90 to 95% of it.
okay,
It was pre-existing.
yeah, it's,
This was pre-existing. This was not due to the work. This was something that the work did not cure,
Okay.
which is the essence of our lawsuit.
the problem was so extensive that the engineer didn't propose a correct fix or an extensive enough fix to get it corrected the first shot. And then we went out and found an engineer, which you seem to be very pleased with.
Yeah.
Okay, who said, time out, this is not that easy. This is not put a Band-Aid on it, it's gonna go away. This is do major surgery, I can't believe it, they took the granite rocks out.
In 4 locations. So they,
Out?
oh yeah, so they targeted, they have to, and of course, you've got to do support, so they targeted, I want to say, a course of 4 to 6 blocks, depending on the size. Because if you look at the building, those blocks vary in size.
Yeah,
And they took them out, and actually, it's all handwork, it's very intricate, and very calculated, very, very measured, and then put the blocks back in. And if you look at that southern side, I challenge you to find the ones we did, because you can't tell the difference. They did such great
I
work.
just, I don't want to get into rumors and comments by the public of what we did and what we should have done and those kind of things, but it sounds like we have a course of mediation. We're going to get it squared away. And if, like Mr. Correa said, if we spend 1.5 and we get 850 back, and we do fix it, and we inherited the problem when we said, I'll buy for $1, then it's
It
okay.
is what it is.
It's okay.
Chris, you're next.
Thank you. I'm the same way. Let's not worry about the past. This is what we gotta fix. I mean, at this point, am I thrilled about this? Not even slightly. Do we need to fix it? Absolutely. Jen showed me. She showed me all the walls. I mean, it's ridiculous when you walk into the front of this beautiful building that we've taken care of, and those 2 front posts. You got insulation coming out. You got beams exposed. It's disgusting. It's for the amount of money that we spent. And I'm not thrilled about this. I think, Brian, I think you know this, but we fought about this building a little bit, so you know. But the point is, it needs to be done. The reason why I have a question is when you said by next spring, I'm a little worried about the fact that, yes, we're going to appropriate this money now. You're not getting it till July 1st. It's not. I'm worried about mold.
No.
You know, to be honest with you, if we're gonna delay this project almost seriously 12 months.
Well, yeah.
That's the only reason I want to throw that there, and I know you have an answer for it, but for the public and just for myself, that's the only thing I'm worried about, because literally there was, when Jen showed it to me, like, it hadn't rained in a couple days, and I still saw trickles. So I'm just curious.
There's going to have to be, and there is an interior renovation figure in this 1.5 as well. Okay. That's going to have to be part of the project. Okay. The mold, I guess you'd have to talk to her to see how extensive that is, and I think it's probably targeted in different locations. Okay. But, Chris, the youth center's been living with this at least since it's opened, 2015.
I mean, that building is built for mold, let's be honest. And that's why I just want to make sure that you are in it. And I hate to say this, I want to make sure you guys get enough money. This is against everything I believe in, but my point is, Brian, I'm on your side here. My point is, I'm a little worried about if we leave the situation for another year and we have mold down there, and you guys have done such a great job doing new rooms, this, that, and the other thing. If water's behind it, let's just tackle it all at once. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Brian. I know you're always, but my point is, just for the public, I want to just bring it up, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And, it's all an issue. But, the idea is if we can get the funding now, we still have to go through designer selection and bid and then contract mobilization. And then all of a sudden you can't do it once the weather gets too cold because you're talking about very intricate mortar work. Yeah. So when we talk,
that's what got us in the trouble in the first place.
That was part of it. That was part of it.
Yeah, I live in a brick building that has mortar that's leaking every day, so don't worry about it.
That was part of it.
We got 6 months worth of work before we can start, and that puts us right in the winter.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to take time. for
So I'm just saying, because obviously what he's getting to is, can we accelerate it? But legally,
We'll try to, but, like you said, by the time you get up and running and everything going, all of a sudden you're into September and October,
Exactly.
and they're not going to want to mobilize
Right.
if they, have to shut it down in November.
And that was the point of my question. I know it was pointed, but I knew you knew what I was
Presented
saying.
that question to the consultant, because obviously we want to get going on it.
hold on, Andy?
I mean, I don't want to dwell on the past, as Chris points out, but I do want to dwell on the future. And I'm trying to understand, are we comfortable that this building has structural integrity, right? I mean, it was a water disaster when we inherited it. Now I'm hearing we've had it for, 9 years, and we're still dealing with water disasters. I've sat here through meetings in prior years where we had moisture and waffling of floorboards. At some point, you do have to ask the question, what do we reasonably think it's going to cost to maintain this building over 5, 10, 20 years, and is it worth the cost? And I'm just trying to understand, has that analysis been done? Have we had any professional opinions as to long-term integrity of the building?
Well, it's, let me just backtrack and point out, it's not a water disaster now. It's a water issue. When we took over that project back the town got it in 2006, 2007, we worked toward this project starting in 2013. It was, in fact, a water disaster. And it was, to a certain degree, a structural issue. The renovation project took care of the structure. There's new steel reinforcements put in, new roof. Essentially, everything but for the envelope of the building is more or less brand new and reinforced. So the structure of the building is in excellent shape. The water seepage is a condition of the granite and the stone where, I guess, you can't make it impenetrable. You have to let the water in. The key is to make sure you get the water out, and that's what the flashing does. And the previous engineer was trying to make it impregnable, and that was not the way to go.
Any other questions?
Make a motion?
David, I'm assuming favorable?
Yes.
I'll second.
Jerry Hyatt, second. Any other discussion? So we have a motion
Can I-
to recommend favorable to the town meeting.
Once- You brought up a great point. Is there a piece of the puzzle in the proposal for mold to remediate the mold? Or is that-
Well, right now, the focus is more or less on the envelope of the building. But the cost estimate that we have as part of the litigation does include interior refinished, not mold specifically, and I don't know that mold itself is so much of an issue right now, but
But it can turn into a
that would be.
huge environmental issue.
Well, again, remember, this water's been coming in
Okay.
since 2015, 2018.
So we've
it's
been avoiding the mold issue since 2015.
Yes, it's been combated, it's been dealt with since that time.
Yeah, we've done some remediation, I believe, in the lower part of the building for mold, so we have not disregarded it.
Okay,
I'm comfortable with the 1.5. I'm just want to footnote what Mr. Moran said, that we could be looking at another 100, 200,000 to remediate the mold.
Jerry, this is ongoing. It's like any building we have in the town.
Never-
Comfortable with the town hall.
Don't remind me.
But something could happen, and all of a sudden, you
Okay.
could run into an issue. To the best of your knowledge, this 1.5 takes care of it.
Right now, it does,
Yes.
but like I said, if we're going to go out to bid on this thing 6 months from now, 8 months from now, whatever it is, who knows what the market's going to be? I mean, stuff is going up every day.
Well, it's just like the Central Street Bridge we went through.
Right,
And it
right.
doubled the Water Street culvert. That's what I'm saying. To the best of your knowledge today,
Yes.
Yes.
this is a good plan.
Spoke with
This
the
was the
consultant-
That's all we can ask.
Spoke with the consultant 2 days ago.
Yeah, this was the number that we had gotten in 2023 with an escalation through essentially now.
Chris says nobody likes spending 1.5 million, but It is what
Well,
it
the
is.
only thing, a point I'll say to that, and you probably remember this because we were going through this at the time, I mean, when we were looking to acquire that building, you're talking 33,000 square feet, granite block building built in 1911. So one of the questions that we asked at that time, if we were to build that building today, i.e. 2015, what would it have cost? Do you remember the number?
10 to 12 million.
12 to 15 million.
15.
I heard the 10 and a half.
It was 12 to 15 million.
Right.
So if you were going to build it brand new at that time, that's what the number would have been.
I just want to add that I understand that the price is high, but look who that building is servicing. It's servicing the youth of this community, and all this programs that Jen does there, I think that, you can't put a price on it, so.
We have
I see-
seniors who,
Seniors too. I mean, that
Programs there
building,
also.
that
Youth groups,
gets kids off the
church
streets,
groups.
keeps them busy.
building.
We should do everything we can to
Make a
keep
motion
it good.
for,
Thank you.
We have a
We have a motion.
We have a
Michael, hold on, Michael had a call.
A little bit of a general question there. The water flow that's underneath going through the three culverts and all, is that a named underground brook? What is it?
Oh, gosh, I'm not sure if it's the Hospital Brook.
Hospital Brook.
I was going to, yeah, because
Exactly
it
right.
goes, it runs,
Literally underneath the building.
yeah. probably
very elaborate.
Towards yours,
Coming
too.
from somewhere and going somewhere.
Yeah.
So my question is, are there no grant potentials since it is a brook situation which we're being facing elsewhere in the town?
That issue has been totally engineered and totally rectified.
Yeah.
You're getting zero water in from that at this point. We dealt with that 9 years ago with the initial project.
That's the 3 torpedo tubes.
if you walked the
Exactly.
building before they did the work, it's a
Yeah.
very elaborate system.
I remember
and
being
very
amazed
impressive, if
walking
to say the
downstairs
least.
and
Yeah,
seeing it.
yeah.
Okay, roll call. Lauren?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And Brian, thank you for the 60 grand for the youth center.
It would help, whatever we can get.
Every little bit helps.
That's it.
That's 60,000 we don't have to take out of our tax money.
We'll keep trying. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Chris, BVT, the request for capital. Article 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm in front of you again as the Blackstone Valley Tech Vocational School District Regional Treasurer. This article is seeking approval to borrow $10 million for the roof project. As you know, we need 9 out of the 13 districts to vote it to have the project done. The article is written a little bit differently. If the district does not get any MSBA funding, we do have to come back to the 13 districts for a revote. So essentially, if we do get funding, then the vote stands. But Milford's share of the $10 million will be 12.5%. So it's roughly $1,250,000 if it's the full $10 million. And if we do go out to bond for that full $10 million, it would be a 20-year bond with projected interest rates at 5%. Your first debt payment for FY '26, not '25, would be roughly $125,000 and then declining therefore.
Now, I'm
thereafter.
confused. If we recommend and the town meeting approves 100, up to 125,
You're not approving up to 125, you're voting on the $10 million bond, the
Okay.
full $10 million.
but people are going to want to know what's our exposure.
Sure.
Sure.
Worst case, it's 125.
Worst case would be 125.
So
Yeah.
if we got nothing back, or we got no contribution from SBA, it would be $1.25.
Right.
Correct. After,
So why would we have to re-vote?
so because some towns, without going into too much detail of it, some towns in the district wanted this language in that they were going to vote on it pending an MSBA approval. If there wasn't an MSBA approval, they don't know if they can afford their portion of the $10 million, so they wanted us to come back and re-vote. All that's doing is delaying the project and pushing it off.
Do we have an option?
Sure you do.
Sure you do. You could say no,
If we say no and 9 other towns say yes,
then you're stuck with it.
I was going to say, I didn't know it was optional whether we,
No, yeah.
Either way,
If we say no, the other towns are going to follow suit.
Right.
Most likely.
Carly, you had a question?
If someone says no, does it change our percentage that we have to pay?
No.
Like, it doesn't
No.
read?
No, it's all or nothing.
So let me explain the percentages. The percentages are based off a 3-year average of the enrollment. So they're going back to FY '22, '23, and '24. And the percentages will not change throughout the life of the bond. They stay the same. That's per the charter of the district. So that was the same thing that was done back when they did the $36 million bond. That's ending FY '25, so this new debt will start in FY '26, so there's no...
To answer that question, there's no town number 3 and town number 5 say no, so we got to make up the difference?
No.
It's all or nothing.
No,
If 9 towns say yes,
Correct. 9 out of 2/3 vote, just like if I was going out to bond for Milford, it would be 2/3 vote
So
of town
if
meeting.
the 1/3 says no, they still have to pay?
Yep.
yes,
They still keep a
yes,
percentage of that?
there's no choice.
It's like being married.
Dave,
You're
then
you're
Bobby.
either in or you're out.
I'm just unclear. So is it $10 million with or
Well,
without the
Marcia is tough,
MSBA
so-
I
funding?
can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Is it 10 million with or without the MSBA?
Right now, the $10 million is without any MSBA.
So it's without the
reimbursement.
MSBA funding?
Right. You have to vote, you have to vote on the total project.
So if we do get MSBA funding, what's the range of what?
So
That's my question. What is it?
So usually MSBA funding would be about 50%.
Okay.
Worst case scenario.
Historically, Blackstone Valley Tech has been around,
How about 42%?
yeah, but historically BVT has gotten a 53% reimbursement rate.
Worst case.
So
This is worst case scenario.
worst case
number.
scenario, you would be paying $125,000.
This is worst case scenario number.
Hold on, Bobby.
Weekly recognized by the chair myself.
Worst case scenario?
I have long been a strong proponent that you take care of your infrastructure. And the fact of the matter is here, from what I'm hearing, is the roof needs to be repaired. I'd like to get out of here before 8 or 8:15, so I will not start talking about the accolades that we could pour on Blackstone Valley.
Golf course is closed.
Oh, well, negate that. In any event, based on that, let's get down to business. It's broken, it's got to be fixed. We do have a choice, but in reality, we don't. So in that, I'm going to make a motion for a favorable recommendation on
Second.
Article 15.
Second.
It's all done.
Bobby and Chris. Any other comments? Roll call. Lauren.
Yes.
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 Yes. Unanimous.
Perfect, thank you.
kind
I will
sir.
let the school committee.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, fella.
Yeah, Michael, Dr. Fitz's assistant requested the report after it's done, so I'll be sending that to her on Friday. Copy of our Finance
Say
Committee
yes, Bill.
report.
Yep,
So you can just let her know that we're on track.
will do.
Okay, the last one, number 31, balancing of the departments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you distribute that document?
Yes.
Okay, great. You have a document in front of you. Sorry, Lauren, I didn't get that out. I meant to. These are the transfers as I see them right now. As a reminder, we have 2 rounds. Gentlemen,
Guys,
thank you. 1 round that we do at town meeting under this article right now. The second one that'll be under Chapter 44, Section 33B. We do that in the last week or subsequent week of the new fiscal year. It takes a vote of the Board of Selectmen and the concurrence of the Finance Committee. But as I see them now, we want to give town meeting a shot at what we need to clean up these accounts. It's a common theme here, at least with the transfer account. So we know that when we went through the budget process, we had a assistant town administrator / economic development position. Did not work out for various reasons, so there's quite a bucket of money hanging there. So I'm going to be using that as the funding source, the transfer from account, for a lot of these transfers we have in front of us today. Other than that, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but for people who don't know why you're doing this, the question comes out, why are you worried about $1,800? Could you explain why we have to balance each department?
Sure, yes. To avoid department heads from going to jail and paying a penalty. We cannot have illegal deficits. The only allowable budget that can go deficit is snow and ice, and I suppose tax title can, but we never do. So that aside,
Each department head is legally responsible to have a balanced budget at June 30th.
correct, yes.
And this allows money that was budgeted for personnel to go below the line for stuff, or vice versa.
Exactly, yep. So
It
for,
has to be approved by this committee.
yes.
You can't-
And in this one, town meeting,
Town
too.
meeting, this one is town meeting.
But it has to get approval from this committee first, then goes to town meeting. That's what's so important about the duties of this committee, that this has to happen here. And that's why it's critical.
Well, we'll make the recommendation, but eventually, it's town meeting that decides yea or nay.
So to add, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted people to understand,
Yep.
because we've had transfers here, Zach, in the past years where it was $32.80.
Yes, yeah, just
But
to
it's
square
legally
it up.
required.
Correct. And to take it a little bit further, so as we present our operational budget to town meeting, it's in the form of personal services, that's what you're describing as the top, and general expenses on the bottom, and in some circumstances, police, fire, some of the bigger budgets, some of Rick's public property, have a restricted repair and maintenance account. We do that purposely so that money can only be spent on repair and maintenance and not be absorbed in purchasing whatever else may benefit the department. Sometimes that causes an issue, and most of the time it's the opposite of why we protect those accounts and have them as restricted, because we want them to use it for repairs. Certainly in recent years with expenditures and inflation and whatnot, repairs, as you've heard through the budget process, are growing and growing and growing. They're problematic. So a number of these accounts are taking it from within their own budget, but moving it into that restricted account to cover repair costs. One of the bigger ones being fire. I believe Chief Nelson distributed a memo to Public Safety Committee. Chief Nelson on fire. Yeah, so he's got some of the bigger ones here. Other issues are, point blank, I'll tell you, the first one, I used the wrong rate in budgeting. It's an error I made, I gotta clean it up. It was the wrong rate, the person had stepped. Other issues, common themes here is overtime costs. Many departments, we don't budget overtime costs. If they work, we have to pay them. Those are the common themes. There's one ask here that I'll go through, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, by the way, but I will go through and ask here. I personally think it's a good thing. I want to expose it a little bit. The very bottom one, tree warden, $6,000. He's looking to transfer from general expenses to the salaries account there. He's been having this project for a long time to map out trees on town property that may need to be removed, replacement, all that. We have a student in Milford that is going to college for forestry, and he wants to do a little internship while she's on summer break to handle this project. Said I would pitch it to the finance committee. I think it's a good thing, but throwing that out
Personally,
there.
I think it's a great thing, because if we know what trees need to be taken down, then Chucky can plan on doing them in groups. I think a while back, we did 100 trees.
Yep.
So not waiting till the last second saying, I think this one, I think that one, but doing it ahead of time and mapping it out will just save us money in the long run.
Well, it'll save us money in emergency repairs, too, when the trees come down in the most inappropriate places and take about $25,000 to $50,000.
Now, Jerry mentioned that we got another bite at the apple in June.
Yes.
So if there's late invoices or whatever, we do have the ability to transfer money. It's limited how much we can do, but I believe if the Select Board and the Finance Committee agree with the
Yep,
Finance...
approval of the Select Board, concurrence of the Finance Committee, but at that time, I would not present items like these asks. That time really should be emergency, the unforeseen couple hours of overtime, stuff like that.
late invoice that we didn't...
Late invoice, yeah, exactly. Repair that came in that cannot wait.
There is
you know.
a overflow just in case, but it should be small.
Yes, sir.
So, David?
Just a point, and it might be helpful to the reader. Because if you look at the IT department, it's going from salary to wages to salary to wages with different account codes. I'm assuming it's the GL codes. It might be helpful to label those codes just to know where it's going from to.
I don't disagree. I can do that in the future, yes.
So, thank you.
So that's just two different salaries.
Yeah, it's two different
You're moving it
departments.
from one
Yeah.
person, one individual to another.
One department to another.
just-
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll take that into
Within the
consideration.
IT
I'll do that.
department?
Yeah. Nope, it's going from the 122 is selectmen. So I said that position that's no longer filled left a surplus of about $100,000. So that's kind of the common theme of the funding source. But I got what he's saying, and it's a good idea.
122, 551.
It's a good idea for the future.
It's a good idea.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can you put that in the notes, good idea, please, minutes? First one, been on the...
On the calendar, Dave had a good idea.
Do you need an approval, a motion for the entire list here?
I would suggest we do as we've done in the past, Jerry, exactly that we make a motion for Article 31, not individually.
I'll make the motion to.
Okay. Carly seconded it. Jerry made the motion favorable. Carly second. Any other questions or? Okay, Lauren, roll call.
Yes.
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 Favorable? Yep. Yes.
Jerry?
Yes, I made the motion.
Yes.
Unanimous. Okay. We've been advised that there's no reason to talk about the IT department tonight, that the IT department will be for next year. Subcommittee reports. Anything new and exciting from the subcommittee since last week? I'll bring one thing up. We have a scheduled meeting the second Wednesday, as we always do, of the month, next Wednesday. I'm going to suggest we don't have it since we've had 4 meetings in the last few days. Does anybody object to that?
I don't object to not having a meeting, but don't you want to leave it in place just in case?
Yes, but we'll cancel it on Monday.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying,
You're
but-
preempting that.
Yeah, well, I don't want to have to go back. If everybody says, unless an emergency comes up or something,
In other words, you're going to cancel.
yeah, the way I'm not seeing any objection to it, so come Monday, I'll let Danielle know to cancel it. Nomination committee. Oh, is our nomination committee ready to put together a slate?
Who chairs that? Joyce?
No.
No, Chris,
That's Regina.
not tonight, I just,
I will get it ready. Anyone who's interested in being nominated for chairman, vice chairman, or the executive board, please send me an individual email. Please do not send a group email. Do not violate the open meeting laws. But either send it to me or Joycey. Thank you.
okay. Last thing, then, oh, you have any update?
Yes, thank you. I just distributed our funding source document for this town meeting. I also have the updated, as we call it, balance sheet income statement. I didn't want to hand that out right now because I don't want to confuse anyone. Looking at 2 different documents. So following this, I will distribute this and you can tick and tie it yourself, or I can answer questions, up to you. But I'd like to go over this quickly and open it up to any questions. So a few items, look at the very top here. This is for this annual town meeting, May 20th, 24. Starting off with the operational budget, we know we approved and we finalized at the last meeting $152,285,087. That's the budget. 12.7 was enterprise fund, so that's the very top line going across, all right? You look in the middle of the page, I carried $2.8 million of free cash from the last certification. That's only available until June 30th, and then we no longer have authorization to use anything until I have it recertified, also with the results of fiscal year 2024. If you follow that column all the way down, just bringing your eyes to locations, then we'll go deeper. I do plan on using the vast majority of this at this town meeting, leaving 66K to be recycled, for lack of a better word, okay? Back over to the left-hand side, these are the article numbers, article descriptions, and the amounts that have been presented, approved, for favorable or unfavorable.
Not approved, accepted.
Accepted, yep, or a favorable recommendation, in one case, an unfavorable recommendation. But at this time, nonetheless, it will go to town meeting. So we need to have a funding source for it. Raise and appropriate column, go ahead.
You said something unfavorable?
Yes. We voted unfavorable on the geriatric request.
Okay. It came across, it sounded like septic system, and I don't know what.
No.
I'm sorry.
Close enough.
Stop. Sorry, Zach,
you're
keep
banned.
going.
Thanks. Okay.
Sorry.
So amounts and the various funding sources. So as you can see, the majority of this is coming from free cash. Couple reasons. Some of them are time sensitive, as we learned with items like Central Street Bridge, snow and ice must be in this budget. So some of them are by design because they have to be. Others because we might as well use our free cash, right? And avoid raise and appropriate. However, what is a little different at this annual town meeting that we're used to is it's pretty capital heavy. We try to push a lot of the capital to October, but again, circumstance brought it where we're here with certain capital items to deal with now. So some of those items are going to have to end up on the raise and appropriate category. We have 3 such, which becomes to $2.5 million. All right? So you may be telling yourself at this time, if you're not, I'm going to tell you, the balance sheet that we put together for raise and appropriate numbers for capital was 1.75 for the year. Okay? We got 2.5. So right out of the gate, that's a reconciling item that you will see to that balance sheet. Bring your eyes all the way down, bring it down to the bottom. You may see this familiar number, targeted levy relief, which we were trying to hit. That was the important piece that was on the balance sheet / income statement there, 5.7 million. That is the number of excess levy capacity from this past fiscal year, and that's what we were going to try to hit again. Right now, as you can see, the way we have this design, it will not hit that number. We're about $1.5 million off of that number. In other words, as it stands now, excess levy capacity would look at 4.3 million. Further, we obviously have another town meeting coming in October. I will have free cash certified at that point, but we will also have articles. So to say where I'm going to land at this time in October, a little premature, but we're not hitting target as of right now, is what I will say, and that's the most important piece as of right now.
I think the biggest thing for people to keep in mind, for a couple of years, you and I, Zach and I, have been talking about how we going to afford the new high school. And we were estimating $7-ish million in interest a year. So we were hoping, Chris, we need a new long-term debt schedule, if you wouldn't mind. We were hoping that by the time the numbers hit, we'll have $2 million come off the balance sheet, off the debt sheet, and we'd have $5 million in excess levy. We're at $4 million in excess levy. So we got to be careful, because when we start adding things, you know, and $1 million here, $1 million there, it nibbles away at that excess levy, which means in a couple years, when hopefully it's only I hate to use the term, but it's $7 million of interest, we can't count on excess free cash. I mean, we've been lucky over the years, it's been $3.5 million, sometimes we've had 6 or 7, but we're going to need $7 million at least a year. And that may be low. So we got to be careful when we start talking about adding reoccurring debt.
School system.
Well, the school system is a one-time this year.
No, I just mean the operating that they put off this year is going to show up again after this year.
But
And that
again,
was 7 or 8 million.
and you turn around and say the new high school is going to be at least $7 million a year in interest. So we got to be careful when, we'd all love to add more personnel in different departments. We'd all love to add different expenses. But keep in mind, $7 million at least is coming our way, and I'm hoping it's only 7. And the 5 and the 2, well, right now, we don't have 7 projected, we have 6. And that means using, if we don't get lucky, using profanity, a debt exclusion. So we got to be careful. I just want to bring it up so that nobody in a couple of years says, we never knew that giving so much to this department or that would affect it. It's going to affect it if we are not very, very careful. Does that make sense? Chris?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think you're ringing the bell loud enough, and I think exactly your point was precisely on there. We're knocking about 25% off our levy capacity, and we haven't even hit the October meeting. I want to say that again. We just knocked 25% off our levy capacity, and we have not even hit the October meeting. We have not hit a school. I think we need to be very, very careful now about our spending. And I think that the finance department has done, Jack, I think about you. You're the best of the best. But you can only work with what you can work with. And this is the way the numbers come out. I'm scared. Do you have a beep on that? I'm scared bleepless right now. We knocked 25% off our levy capacity in one meeting. We haven't in October, which is where that's where the capital is. That's where the big money starts getting hit. Okay? When you start hitting levy capacity, and I don't want to talk to this board because I know that we do. I'm talking to the public. Do you understand what that does to people's tax rates? Al, you tell us all the time about the
$80 per million.
But now we're compounding it because we were subsidizing you by $6 million. We were subsidizing the tax rate. And now we already are down 25%. After the October meeting, I can't even imagine we're going to be down. People's tax bills are going to blow up, and that's before we built the school. So I just want everyone on this board and all the public to be aware that we do the best we can, and I honestly believe that what's in front of us is our best avenue, but I also want the taxpayers of this town to be prepared that there are going to be severe increases in people's property tax bills by just what we're looking at now before we even hit October. Okay, and it's not by anyone not doing good work. It's just the fact that expenses have come up. We had knew this, knew that, and it just happens. But I just need people to be ready for this, and I think we cannot blindside people and let them all of a sudden open up their tax bills in September 1st when the new fiscal year starts, and they're like, holy moly, like what's going on here? So I think everyone should be very aware of what's going on here and what these numbers are. And that's the only thing I just wanted to point out, Mr. Chairman, because we haven't had this. Yeah, we've been on this
2003.
since me and you. I think me, you, and Jerry, and the longest on here right now, and Bobby. But the point is, we haven't seen a number like this in a long time, have we, Al?
How can I answer this?
So
Go ahead.
I think you're preaching to the choir, and I appreciate that. You're alerting everybody in this room, and you're trying to alert the people who are not watching, okay? Because we.
well, I know, Jim.
Mr. Correa can tell you he's not watching, okay? But what concerns me is the message is not getting to the department heads. Okay, you're preaching to the choir, and this message is just out in thin air everywhere you go. And I know what you're going to say, but I keep hearing these initiatives that are coming up, whether it's here, there, or there, and I'm not. I think what you say is you got to let everybody know that.
But Jerry, I think you're right, and it's our
It's our job to tell.
It's our job to come back and Chief Nelson brought up a really good point of adding 4 firefighters.
Okay,
And we had a meeting and told him, we just don't have it this year.
okay,
Chief Tassino wanted 4 police officers. And again, we went back to Robbie and said, Robbie, love the idea, it's well worth the investment, but we don't have the money.
But what Chris is saying, it's not going to be there next year.
But for the record, though, Jerry, I don't have any issue with the
We don't know,
budget.
we don't
I don't
know.
have any issue with it either.
Just so you know.
Okay,
I'd actually like a couple more dollars in the budget, to be honest with you, but
but what you're saying is 100% correct.
I just want to make the public aware.
I don't want to be guilty of pushing it under the table. Let's put it out front and tell everybody, and then if they don't like it at town meeting, they can stand up and voice their differences. And that's their opportunity to say, no, I've had enough.
Okay.
And that's
Zach,
what we-
anything else?
No,
Any
but
questions?
I think we just need to carry the message.
I want to carry it to the next. I sent out the draft of our report to the town meeting. That's where I'm going to bring it up when I do my initial report. People need to understand
In your opening remarks.
in the opening remarks.
And your closing, concluding remarks.
Yes.
I hope. I'm not putting words in your
Well,
mouth.
no, but
But I
the
really.
report is the closing,
Andy.
but in the opening, we're going to highlight 2 or 3 things that can have substantial impact.
Okay. If
And
you-
people have to understand, I mean, we've always said we don't use profanity in this room. I'd like to keep that tradition alive and not use
If you,
that exclusion.
if you deliver the message like you just did to us, to town meeting, it will be successful. Thank you.
Any other-
Use the words override as opposed to debt exclusion, because there are several different types of overrides, one of which is the debt exclusion. I think people relate more with an override. No,
It's still profanity.
agreed. Agreed.
I mean, a debt exclusion, people will say, well, that's only for 20 or 30 years. Yeah, but
Oh, that, oh,
you
that
sit
makes
there
me
and
so
say,
happy.
20 or 30 years from now, what makes us think that we won't have another school that needs help? So it's the same, one way or another, it's $80 out of every million that we put in there coming out of our pockets.
So, just to make sure everybody's reading Zach's numbers the way I'm reading them. So Zach, the budget of 152.285, you really need to add to that the 2,000,008 that you're spending out of free cash if you're talking about the total expenditure. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so the real number is like 155-ish, right?
Actually, 161.
No, all right, to make it easier, just look at me for a second. This number here, take it down here.
Follow it all the way down the
All the way down, 160,
161.
Oh, okay.
you know, 160
We're going to
million.
spend
940.
$161 million if this plan is approved
Yes,
this year.
yes,
152 of
with
it.
like 6 different funding sources.
Well, again,
Right.
we're going to
Yes.
spend
Yeah.
161 million.
Yeah,
How you pay for it is your magic.
Yes.
And you've got 1.757, it says earmarked for a special town meeting. So what would be available in order to keep the excess levy capacity at 4.3 million would be 1.7 million plus whatever's available in free cash?
yes. That 1.75 is the exact number on the.
That's what we budget
That's
as
the
capital.
stabilization amount.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what we budget as capital. The problem is, we never spend what we budget. It's always a lot more, because we've had free cash. And I'm bringing this up because come the day when the school interest hits, $7 million at least of interest is going to suck up every dollar of free cash we can project right now, so we got to be careful. And that's why when people say, well, why are you against giving $1 million a year or $2 million to this group and $1 million here? Because not this year. This year, we could give it away.
Yeah, and I would even argue that interest and debt has to be out of raise and appropriate. We
Yeah.
cannot rely on free cash for that.
Right, and that's my point.
Yeah.
Because when you're going to rely on $7 million of interest, free cash some years is $3 million. And we're lucky to have that. There's towns around us that would envy having $3 million. David?
Mr. Chairman, we got, as everybody knows, we got croaked by the Chapter 70 money from the state. So do we to get ahead of the curve, do we know what fiscal year '26 is going to look like?
We do not. We don't even know what 25 is going to say.
But how do you get in front of that, though, for budget purposes? Jerry's point,
The
like,
state has no clue.
That's what we do for that year.
The fundamental problem, David, is for 40 years, I was one of them that nagged on the superintendent saying, you're getting one net kid per year incremental. In 1974, when that high school first opened, we had 220 graduates. 40 years later, we had 262.
Right.
So it was net one. Then all of a sudden, the borders opened, and we were getting 200 kids a year for 2.5 years straight. 200 children is 2/3 of Memorial School or more. So it's like adding a Memorial School every year without funding.
yeah.
We got lucky that we got targeted by the state, and we got $7 million the first year, incremental $7 million the second year. That kind of took us right, to where we could survive. But this year, luckily, when you talk about the departments being serious about our situation, school committee came back with a reasonable number. Michael and I were there when we were expecting to not have a pleasant meeting, and we started off 1% apart. We said, we're not going to play the game of rug merchants, that I'm going to bid this, you're going to bid that. We went and told the school committee 6.5% is the maximum that we can go. And they came back and said, well, we're at 7.5. We said, great, that's only 1% you have to cut.
Right, yeah.
So
That's good.
we're doing the best we can, but you can't predict it, because if we got another 200 kids show up on our doorstep,
That's a concern, is like, where, what do you do? Like, where, you kind of pigeonholed, so you got to figure it out
but the problem is,
now.
we can't go to Chief Tassino and say, take all these new immigrants and deport them to Rhode Island. We don't have the power.
Right.
They come to Milford, you got to educate them. And if the state doesn't give us money, well, town meetings never turn their back on
Maybe we'll
kids.
house them in the youth center, and then we'll get state money to fix the problem.
I like your thinking,
Oh,
Nicholson.
stop.
I think it's
Okay.
time to move on, Mr. Chairman.
But I do have to say, before we close this out, Mr. Chairman, the work that the department heads, the committees, Zach, Rick, Pilla, Paul, Brownie, the fact that they can take $152 million, actually, that's not true,
161.
$161 million and do this is an incredible thing. Like, they presented to us and we, yeah, hey, everything's great, ha, 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 beautiful, I love that, I love that. This takes 52 weeks of work. I mean, he's done tonight. He starts working on fiscal 25. Right, thank you. He will start working on that. So I just want to tell you that the work that the finance department and the way that Rick handles them and the way that they all work together with department heads, I don't think we would be any luckier in any town than to be what we have with everybody here, so.
Okay, I sent out the draft report that I want to present to town meeting. I got one comment back, that was Andy. Do you want to expound on your comments, or?
Al, can I make one point
Sure.
before you shift gears? Thank you for what you just said, and I want to reiterate. The department heads are part of the choir, okay? So to say the message needs to go to department heads, I'm a little offended by that. So speaking for all department heads, we work hard. We work with Zach, Johnny, and Pilla to make sure we can do what we can within budget. And we have asks, we do run them through. So the 9 people that you always say are watching here, I just want to be clear that
And Rick,
we are responsible. They work damn hard, and I'm not going to let that last comment
But I think
go
the
by.
message really meant.
I didn't like the message.
Department heads to keep doing what they're doing.
I'm not sure that was Jerry's
Okay,
message, but I agree with you 100%.
If
So
they
I'm going
take
to
their
stick up for my
foot off the
department heads.
accelerator,
Yeah,
we
well,
can't
it's
do it
hard.
without them.
And I want that to be made clear.
Realistically, you read the paper and you see this town with this department fighting the select board,
Understood.
this department
Understood.
fighting. We don't fight. We have our disagreements.
And that's okay.
I mean, every year we start off with the
okay.
school committee saying, we are broke.
Yeah, I know,
Right?
and I've
they
been
come back
listening
and
to that
say,
for 11-plus
We need
years.
$1 billion increase. and then we laugh a lot, and we come up with...
Just don't want the perception out there.
The perception should be...
We need to be lectured.
Please don't stop
We don't.
doing what you're doing.
And that's
Without you,
fine.
we're
I will
dead.
take it that way. I'm not sure that's the way it was delivered.
Okay. Andy, did you want to talk about your comments?
I'm not sure I do.
Okay.
You recirculated the report, unless people have an issue. I have no other issues.
We have till tomorrow. I promised Paulie that the last couple, I've given him a day and a half to make 9 billion copies. This time we're ahead. I will make the edits from tonight, tomorrow, and I will send you by Friday a black and white copy, and I'll send the committee a color PDF.
Mr. Chairman, that's a lot of hard work that you do. I just want to say thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, seriously.
It really is.
There's no question. I mean, even when he was in chair, which is, let me tell you, from 5 or 6 years doing it, what an unbelievable amount of work. And then on top of that, for him to do this report, Al, I want to I want to thank you, because it really is an incredible amount of work. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
I agree.
I think that's it. I don't have anything else on my agenda.
Just going to hand this up to take home.
Is that, Paul?
Invitation.
Oh, invitation to speak. I forgot.
Got it, Mike. Got it, Mike.
It's on my list. I jumped over it. Is there anybody here that wants to speak?
You gotta sit closer to the front.
Harold, before you start, Zach, is this in a form that Paul can post on the website?
I'll get you a copy.
Okay.
This is the latest version. Thank you.
Exactly, thank you.
So Paul, just post it up with everything else. I think it's important that we live up to our commitment that anything that comes to us, we'll put in a central place so that town residents can see what we're looking at. Okay, Harold.
Thank you. I understand, Chairman, that because these items perhaps were not specifically called out on the agenda, that perhaps there can be no response, but I do believe that I looked through here, every one of these topics was discussed in one form or manner. But, mostly, I put this together because I know these questions are going to come up at town meeting. And if they do, I think it's important that the Finance Committee be able to answer these questions, because this is an important year. But I got a quiz, and I'll answer it later on. What do the towns of Hanover, Franklin, Braintree, Andover, Newton, and Brookline all have in common? I'll come back and answer that in a little bit. I don't understand about Countryside. Zach, maybe you can just throw an answer. If we give them $800,000, do they get the whole $800,000, or do we take back $600,000?
I'm going to continue to do the process I have been doing, and providing checks on request, and they are obligated to pay their debt.
So will you take the $600 out of that $800 to give
They
them a
will
net?
pay the debt.
We can't take it.
They will pay the debt.
They will pay the debt. So in fact, all they're going to end up with is $200,000, which is, we all know, is maybe 2 months more, maybe. So I'm not quite sure what they're even trying to do. Thank you, Zach, for number 2 for the pro formas. I appreciate that very much. I do think next year there should be a substantial discussion about the notion of free cash and how it's been used traditionally in this town for as long as I can remember. First of all, I think it's really terrible nomenclature to say it's free cash. But more than that, I think the way we go about that last notion, or that last article, that we're able to move things around and then have them voted upon, is just an inappropriate way to do budgeting. I think it's important that departments just stay within their budgets and that there's no overflow. And we don't look at free cash as a way to subsidize those departments that go over. It's just much too easy of a fix. So,
Harold, I think the operative word is it's not additional money. When you move a department, years ago, town meeting voted to have personnel separate from stuff. So you can move money between, but we're talking about spending $161 million. A year from now, when Zach moves stuff around, the final number is still 161 million. He's not adding any incremental money to bail somebody out.
And Mr. Chairman, that's perfectly what I understand the situation has always been. I just object to it. Okay, I just think if there is $2.5 million of what we call free cash left over, it should just be put into the stabilization account. And what that would encourage is more concern by department heads to stay within their budget, because that's their number, and they can't slip over it. So we need, no fail-safe for expenditures. You have a number, you live with it. And don't count on Zach with free cash to come and bail it out.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, just to clarify a point, free cash is not a source of any of the overages by department, just so that.
That's what I'm saying, we're not adding money. This is just shuffling it inside.
Free source, it's from another spot in the budget, not free cash.
And again, I understand that.
But you keep saying it.
No, but what I'm trying to say is.
Free cash is being used for that, it's not subsidizing.
Vote against it at town meeting.
Okay, guys.
Speak.
Just point of clarification. Wait a minute, hold on. Can you, no, state this for this one. All right, someone will answer this one. So for point of clarification, they're not really over their overall encompassing budget. They're just over in one line item and under another line item.
Most of it is
Personnel.
over or under personnel or over and under stuff.
Right.
And it's being shifted
Within the budget.
within the budget.
So
Every once in a while.
They're not over their budget, but they're
No,
over
but like
one line and under
General
another.
government
Yeah.
may have one department that's a little bit over and a little bit, another that's a little bit under.
Right.
So it can be shifted within general government.
I just,
But the operative word is the total doesn't change.
the totals are, and they're not over budget in total.
Right.
Al, you gotta remember, you go back, and I wish Zach had left because he gotta help me to the chronology. You go back 10, 15, 20 years, Mr. DeVito will remember, you couldn't make those changes.
Right.
They had locked everything down. The only way you could make those changes was to bring it to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee would motion and allow you to make those changes if they so conclude. And at one time, you were not allowed to take personnel money and put it on operating expense or operating expense to personnel. But that's been changed. That's how
Well,
you
you're
do this.
still not allowed because town meeting has to approve.
Well,
You can
there's
propose.
some, I've read the rules, and there's quite a bit of flexibility.
Al, can I jump in at a procedural note? This is invitation to speak. I think we should just let Harold speak. I think
Okay.
we're.
No, you're right.
We're going beyond open.
Going
meeting
to an
laws.
open meeting law violation, so let's keep going,
Well,
Harold.
we did speak about free cash, so I don't think you have to worry about an open meeting law
The comment about
violation.
free cash is right, though. It's bad nomenclature.
Okay, keep going.
I understand nobody can't respond to this, but there's been some questions that I believe are going to be asked about the dual tax rate and whether, in fact, in the dual tax rate, as much money is being put upon the non-residential as possible, as opposed to the residential.
And Harold, with all due respect, that's totally out of our purview. We don't even recommend that. That's select board.
And I'm not hearing questions here.
No, I'm sorry, Bob.
Questions, but I don't hear any questions.
Well, we can't really answer questions because
Okay, so let me form it as a question. If you're saying that the Finance Committee does not have any area to discuss tax rates, then thank you.
We recommend an amount.
Okay,
And then the
okay.
select board is the one that decides
Okay.
what percentage goes to
Right.
the commercial. and-
Votes on the shift.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
We're spending a lot of money this year, and I think it would be helpful this year, as opposed to a global, this is about how much money we're going to spend. I'm asking that the Finance Committee prepare what the impact on taxes would be for residential homeowners at different tax rates. For example, if we were to pass, let's say Countryside, let's pick on a good one here, what does it cost someone who has $800,000 versus what is that going to cost someone with $200,000. We use a global 80 per. I don't think that that's good enough anymore. We have to tell people, we're spending this money, and this is how much money we're going to spend out of your pocket, depending on where your assessed value is. So I'm asking that, if not now, at a future meeting, that the Finance Committee...
Bring up, because we always talk about an average home in Milford is $5,900 a year. And we could pick 3 points and say, given the current tax shift and all, a house worth X would be this, Y would be that, and Z would be this. We'll take that up for advisement at the future meetings.
And I appreciate that, and if we could get down to the article level, because then people would know exactly how much that particular article, that grocery item, is going to cost them.
That's why I say 80 per million. So if you vote on spending $1 million one time, you spend $1 million, it's going to cost $80 out of the pocket of each homeowner. That's the best we can do.
And what you're saying, there's no way to say at a lower price point of a residence, we can say it's going to cost them that, or at a higher tax rate, it's going to cost me that.
As far as I know, it doesn't matter the value of your home. You're getting assessed as one value in Milford.
Okay.
So you don't pay less or more if you have a $300,000 home than if you have an $800,000.
Okay, and if that...
That's correct.
You think it's accelerated?
Well, sure.
It's the same
The rate changes?
The rate doesn't change.
No, what I'm saying, Jerry, is you pay X dollars per thousand or whatever.
But
Then multiply it times 200 or multiply it times 800. It's the same rate.
it's the same fixed rate, yes.
I think Al's point is if the average is 6,000 and we know this is 80 per million, a $12,000 payment would be
It's times 12.
160
Right.
instead of 80.
Times 12 versus...
But the rate
You kinda
doesn't
can
change.
do it, is what he's
The
saying.
rate doesn't change. It's not like your federal tax rate that goes up more
Right,
than...
there's no brackets.
And so, and again, I'll ask this in the form of the question. I don't believe that people understand that when we say 80 per thousand, that number is truly representative of their particular home. And by doing it that at 3 different levels would give people a better idea. So I'm asking for the Finance Committee to do that. And then I'm asking the Finance Committee to do this now by specific article, the more expensive articles, so I can say that for Countryside, my home is worth $700,000. This is how much my share is going to be to pay.
I think we'll take it up, but I think that's too granular. I think the best you're going to be able to do is say, take your tax bill, and if we're doing $1 million for XYZ, add $80.
And if it's 800, it would be $64.
Right.
And again, perhaps we can just schedule this for a longer discussion.
Well, for discussion, we have to put it on the agenda.
At a future meeting,
Okay, keep going.
So let me get back to those towns. Did anybody figure out what those all have in common? Well,
They're not Milford.
no, they're not Milford, but they are all towns that have had layoffs within the last 2 years. Oh, my. Chris, if you were there, my question is, would be, could we please consider in the future what we are looking at in terms of future expenses relative to future revenues? I realize it's a difficult thing to do, but we all must do this as we are truly running up against a case where there is going to be layoffs either this next year or certainly the year after. And I want to be the first one in the room to say that word. Short of using any profanity, we are going to have layoffs. The economics are just such that in this town, especially given the schools, given the low return by the state, given the ongoing maintenance expenses, given the growth in personnel, we are going to have layoffs. And I'd like to have a discussion about future revenues and expenses in the future.
And the thing that you have to take into consideration, In my mind, there's a difference between layoffs and not replacing people.
Either way,
You could have 20 or 30 people retire from a department, and if you don't replace it, essentially you reduce.
okay, and we can call that a non-replacement.
Right.
But, you know.
But I don't want people walking away saying, we're going to have layoffs, because we might not.
Well, I think that's an important point, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we have a gentleman making a projection without any substantiation that.
Well, I can't present that. I'm not allowed.
But like, I'm also going to say, like, I'm not buying into the notion that there's layoffs on the horizon, that we know that they're coming. So you've made your statement that they're coming, but I'll raise my hand and say, I see no evidence of that. I'm not telling you there will or won't, but I don't see anything coming that
Well,
says there's
and
layoffs.
that's why I'm asking Brant for a more
We can discuss
full
that in the
discussion.
future.
I'm
it's on
actually
the
speaking to the
agenda.
audience and not to you on this.
Okay. And
Anything
I
else,
don't want
Harold?
anybody thinking the wrong idea.
I just would like to challenge your last statement, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman. When you say if we don't backfill 40 positions in the school department, for example, they consider that a layoff. You know, I mean, effectively, they're down 40 teachers.
Hypothetical, Al. Where are we going with this?
We're not.
Thank you very much. I'm done. Thank you, Bob.
Anything else under old business?
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second? Second. Motion to adjourn is not debatable. Brant. Lauren, roll call.
Yes.
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 Go Celtics, yes.
Go Celtics, yes, or yes for the motion?
When does the game start, right now?
Unanimous, the meeting is adjourned. For the 6 people watching, thank you for joining us tonight.